Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm grateful to have you here for some food fandom fun from the Sassy Club. I'm going to be using this McGorgeous stamp set as well as the combo stamp set for today's very large 5x7 card. I also have the burger and fry die set. There's a shaker add-on that I'm not going to use on today's card, but I just wanted to show you that that is a possibility, and I'm going to be making a fry and burger to make a perfect combo for today's project. I did a lot of die cutting off camera. You can find the cardstock colors that I used down below, but use what you have in your stash. I'm using red, yellow, greens, brown, and kind of a cream color for today's project. And then I'm going to be using some inks to add a little bit of distress and details to my die cuts. For the fries, I'm using Wild Honey Distress ink and blender brushes to get them, looking a little textured, looking a little fried. And I'm going to squish some of that ink onto my glass board, and I will spray it with water and use I almost said pencil brush. That is not what this is called. A watercolor brush, a paintbrush. There it is. Not pencil brush, paintbrush, to splatter a bunch of a bunch of ink all over my fries. I'll go ahead and clean up my workstation. I'm going to kind of tap up some of the color water from the cardstock so that way it dries a little faster. And I wanted the splatter to be more like subtle fried details rather than, really bright and um, overtake, I guess, the cardstock. I'm also grabbing Lumberjack Plaid to add a little bit of depth and dimension to the red piece. It's really hard to see on camera, but you can see it a lot more in person. But just a very subtle darkness to the sides of my fry container to just give it more of a rounded dimensional look. Now I'm going to work on assembling the rest of, or my fries before moving on to more die cuts and ink blending. So I'm going to figure out where I want to glue this back piece to the fry. I wanted the little kind of dip in the fries to line up. So I am adding liquid adhesive just to the part where I used a pencil or a pen to line up where that needs to go on my back fry piece. So I'm just lining up to make sure that the front piece lines up on the bottom and sides of the back piece, and I'm going to use my magnet to keep that in place while I attach the fries to that back um, fry container piece. I hope that made sense. And then I'm going to pop up the front piece, but first I want to get all my little individual fries in place onto the background. And I'm going to use some foam adhesive for these pieces because I really wanted them to pop up and, give a lot of dimension like my fry box is full. So I'm going to use some foam squares. These are from scrapbook.com, but I am going to cut them in half to use one square per fry. So I'm just putting two little pieces of foam adhesive to the back of my fry. And then once I have an idea of where it will go on the background, I'll pull off the release paper and add that fry into the fry container. I'm trying to pay attention to where there is space between the fries and the background so I don't accidentally get foam adhesive on an open space. But I'm filling in my fries. I end up dropping one on the floor and I didn't realize it. So I think I will have used up all my fries by the time I'm done, but I will have one more in just a minute. And I'm actually using this card to meet this last Friday's episode of Craft Roulette, where we have to have a card with a bookmark. So I thought I would leave one of my fries not attached to my card or to my fry container so you could take it out and totally use it as a bookmark. So now I'm going to attach the front of my fry container to the back with all my fries. So I'm going to add foam adhesive to the sides, the bottom, and then kind of in the middle of my fry container, and I'll just sandwich these together. So I'm just using the sides and bottom of my backing to make sure the front is lined up and popped up. So this is where I found the fry on the floor, and I'm trying to think of where I'm going to put it. So I end up just cutting it in half, and then I'm going to have two kind of smaller fries in the front just peeking out. And I'll just use liquid adhesive to glue these in place since I already have a ton of dimension on the fries already in the card. So this will just, sit on top of those pieces. And I'm also making sure I don't accidentally glue my fry bookmark in place. So I love my super full fry container. It's actually making me want French fries right now. So once that's done, I'll go ahead and set that aside and we'll move on to the next part, which is going to be our double cheeseburger. So I have all of my pieces. I originally only cut one patty and one cheese, but I'm going to realize as I'm building up my burger on this backer that I need more things to fill my burger. So I'm going to be doing again some ink blending on my cream colored cardstock. This time I used tea dye and I completely covered the vanilla cardstock because I wanted it to be a lighter brown but not, vanilla brown. So adding the tea dye just kind of warmed up my little hamburger bun, and I did a lot of splatter to give it texture. And then I'm going to just use some more distress inks to add some dimension to my die cut pieces. So I have ground espresso for my hamburger. I've got Mowed for my lettuce, rustic wilderness for my pickle, which I know looks huge, but the way I glue it in, it won't look as giant. More lumberjack plaid for my tomato, and wild honey again for the cheese. So I noticed that a little bit of the edges of my backing kind of show when I place everything onto the backing. This was kind of similar to the fries. There was a small little border around the sides and bottom of my fry container, which is fine. You can't tell. But because I added so much color to the bun pieces, the backing was very obvious that it was still vanilla. So I added ink to the edges of that as well. So now I'm just working on putting together my double cheeseburger. As you can see here, I already die cut and added some ink to another patty and cheese. And I'm just layering everything together with foam adhesive so it pops up off the backing. But then where it overlaps with another piece on the double cheeseburger, I'm using my liquid adhesive to attach that. So I'm kind of playing around with the layout. So I have my first patty and cheese, second patty and cheese. I put my tomato on, and now I'm adding my lettuce. And anywhere where there's any excess of the backing kind of showing where I didn't have a piece of I guess hamburger layers to match with the design of the backing, I just use my tiny little scissors to trim off the back so it lines up with the rest of the sandwich. I then added my pickle on top, and as you can see, it goes mostly under the bun. I just wanted a little bit of that pickle to show so it didn't look like a humongous pickle. And then here I have the top of my hamburger bun. So here you can see my combo together. I think they look so cute. You can kind of stack them to make a really tall card, but I'm going to make a 5x7 card that will be top folding. So it will be 5 inches tall by 7 inches wide. So it'll be horizontal. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of white cardstock to trim that down. So I have a letter 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to take the 8.5 side and trim it down to 7 inches. And then the 11-inch side, I'll trim it down to 10 inches. And I will score that same side at 5 inches. So that is how you can get a 5x7 card out of a standard letter if you're here in the US piece of cardstock. So I'm going to use my scoring tool to make sure I have a nice, crisp, good fold on my card base. And then I'm going to work on the next item from Craft Roulette, adding horizontal lines to my card. So I'm kind of going through the craft roulette in my head, and I was like, okay, I can have one of my characters on the card who has horizontal lines, but I really wanted to use the clown for this card. And while I could stick a bunch of cute fandom characters on the front of the card, I really just wanted my burger and fries to be the star. So I'm going to go with the clown character from the stamp set. So I went ahead and die cut 3 pieces of black cardstock using my Slimline strips from scrapbook.com. And I'm going to use my grid mat and liquid adhesive to glue those down. So I'm being very careful to make sure my card is centered on my grid mat so I can glue down this first strip down the center of the card. And then I will just, use my eyes to make sure I have decent spacing for my other two pieces. And my cardstock must have slipped a little when I was die cutting because this piece kind of goes in a little. I was like, "Ooh, why does that look weird?" I think my cardstock slipped when I ran it through my die cut machine, but you know what? It's okay. It still looks good. So I'll go ahead and add those last two pieces of cardstock. Once the glue had dried enough, I'm going to use my large scissors to trim down these pieces of cardstock that went off the edge. And then I have my three horizontal lines on my card. Now the other two craft roulette parameters. I was thinking craft cardstock in my head when I said that. But the other two parameters are I have my card with a bookmark with my french fry. I have my horizontal lines. The bakery colors I feel like are very warm and tasty, which I think I have mastered the warm and tasty here on this card. And then the last one is, I hope you don't cringe too much at me, is we're supposed to include a large animal. So I have a large cheeseburger on my card. So sorry for my vegetarian or vegan friends. We can pretend it's a large vegan burger, but it's a large cow burger on my card. So yes. Anyway, moving on. So I'm adhering now my two very large die cut pieces to my background. So I started with my french fries. I thought the burger would overlap, on the front since it has a little bit more going on towards the bottom of the card compared to the fries. So I wanted my burger to overlap in the front. So I use liquid adhesive to glue down my fries, and I'm using foam adhesive to attach my burger. Obviously, where it overlaps with the french fries, I just use liquid adhesive to keep everything kind of on the same level. So now I brought out my stamp sets. I knew I wanted to use the sentiment "We make a great combo." And then, like I said, I decided on using the clown, the main food fandom character for this particular fast food chain. So I'm going to use my Misty to first stamp my sentiment. I'm being really daring, stamping directly to my card. But I'm using some VersaFine and Onyx Black ink, and VersaFine Claire's and VersaFine Onyx Black have an excellent stamp. They just stamp so nicely the first time. I probably really didn't even need my Misty, but you never know. So I stamped it. It looked great. I went ahead and cleaned it off, and now I'm stamping my clown character. I did stamp it twice to make sure I had some good, clean, crisp edges in my image. And then I'm just going to quickly go through the colors that I used for my character. So for the reds, I'm using R180 as the darkest color. Then I brought in R150 for the medium tone, and then R070 for the lighter tone. Now there is kind of a big jump between these two, so I definitely did 2 layers of color on the hair. The rest of the outfit that had red, it was fine, but I did 2 layers of that lightest color for the hair. Now for the yellow, I started off with Y6, but I thought Y2 would be a better, darker shade. So I went back with Y2, then brought out that color Y6, and finally the lighter shade of Y070 to color in all the yellows. For the white, I used CG200 and my colorless blender to just kind of blend out to make some shadow on his face. And then I used my gel pen to add some highlights and to also cover where I went out of the lines. I went ahead and fussy cut them out. I do have a scan and cut, but when it's just one, I just fussy cut. It doesn't take me too much time. But I definitely recommend a scan and cut. And there are some dies for Sassy Club images. So if you don't see one, make sure to request it in her Facebook group or put in an email and let her know that, this is something you'd like to see. Sandra's really good about releasing dies for her stamp sets. They just don't always come out at the same time. Here's a final look at my fun combo gigantic 5x7 card. I hope you had fun putting together these dies with me. I had a good time, and I really love this cute, adorable clown from my one of my go-to French fry fast food places. Here's one more look at the card. Let me know if there's any other characters you'd like to see from these stamp sets in the future down below in the comments, or other fandom sets from the Sassy Club. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!